In the early 1900s, Kenya, a naturally rich and unexplored land, opened up to the world through the completion of the railway line. Gradually, Kenya became a British colony. Around 1905, over 3,000 British settlers came to Kenya to exploit the agricultural potential of the new frontiers. Many of them acquired large acreage of fertile land with a leasehold of 999 years, forcing many communities to lose their land, a social injustice that would continue to create inequality in distribution of land and its resources in the country.
So what the colonialists did was to put in place laws whose effect was actually to remove the land rights from the local people and to grant those land rights to the Europeans.
And what they did was put communities into what they call reserves. And this ensured that these communities were actually herded into a corner, particularly being denied of maybe the rightful lands where they would have good pasture for their animals, or they would, enjoy their livelihoods as forest dwellers. This ensured that, land that belonged to the Maasai, for example, land that belonged to the Ogiek, the Sengwer, who were in Rift Valley, for instance, became the target, at the expense, of course, to the same communities.
The loss of land had grave impact to millions of Kenyans, particularly the Kikuyu population, whose livelihood solely depended on agriculture.
There arose landlessness. Those who felt the pressure for land and to move to Rift Valley, the White Highlands.
If you look at the history of land, it was at each point a new law is passed, which new law has the effect of taking rights from Africans and putting them in the Europeans.
Due to this, an uprising that would later become the famous Mau Mau movement started agitating for land and freedom from the colonial government. The colonial government retaliated by detaining many. Years later, after they were released from detention, they found their land taken.
One of the critical challenges has been so far that during the colonial period was the fact that there was no recognition of what we call customary land tenure. That with the modern way of thinking, land laws focus more on individual property rights, and therefore the whole question of assuming the right to your land collectively as a people, as is regarded an international law, was thought to be useless by the colonial authorities. So this has generated over a period of time a lot of pressure on the population, on indigenous peoples especially.
In the coastal region of Kenya, landlessness continues to hamper growth and development. In the 1920s, the coastal region became a British protectorate after treaties to annex the 10-mile coastal strip between the Sultan of Zanzibar and the British was signed. This caused the indigenous communities to lose their tenure of ownership, rendering them squatters in what was formerly their land.
Kosti nzima watu ni masquatter. Hakuna mwenye title. Na yule ambaye ana title ni wale 1908 ambao ni jamii ya kisultani imepata ile title, na jamii ya wale maliwali walikuwa ndio kapata hizo title ambazo wanazo. Lakini yule mwananchi wa chini hakuelimishwa kuhusu mambo ya title wala kuarifiwa.
Sharing the same sad history are the Nubians. They live on a square mile with a population estimated to be between 170,000 to 1 million in Kibra. The area was allocated to a few Nubian soldiers by the British government as appreciation for their role in the Second World War.
Na sisi tulizaliwa hapa, tuko wananchi wa hapa. Mama yangu amezaliwa hapa. Nyanya ya mama yangu ndiye alikuja na babu ya mama yangu. Mama yangu alizaliwa hapa. Nyanya yangu alizaliwa hapa, baba yangu alizaliwa hapa. Sasa lakini wanasema sisi si wa Kenya.
The case of Kibra and the coastal land issues are now recognized as historical land injustices that need to be redressed. Other communities who suffered similar fate include the Ogiek, the Endorois, the Sengwer, the Turkana, among others.
Naturally, in places like Turkana and in many arid areas and pastoralist regions, you have areas of land that are communally owned. And whether it is historically, it was done long time ago, the days of my grandfather, when it rained, you all came. So no one really owned that land, no particular community owned that land. And now we're seeing that these places are now being, there's some sort of land grabbing. It's a very silent one because it's not by an outsider, it's by the system.
In 1963, when Kenya got its independence, the then government inherited massive land issues.
The Constitution of Independence did not deal with the fundamental problem of land. The president began to give lands to the friends, to the family. That was a big error.
After independence, instead of having color apartheid, in terms of color discrimination, we ended up having social and economic discrimination.
The failure of subsequent governments to find a solution to the historical injustices has caused more agony to the citizens. With every passing year, the complexity surrounding land becomes weightier, and it has become a source of ethnic conflicts like the ones witnessed in 1992, 1997, and 2007 election years.
So by 90s, there was a lot of debate about land, fairness of land, and a complication was that some communities were moved from the traditional areas to traditional areas of other communities and were given land in that community when that community felt that their own people were not properly housed or had farming land.
If you look at the Constitution Review, why land was a big issue was because it is a land rights issue, it is a territorial question, and then there was the fact that a lot of public land and community land had been illegally and irregularly granted to individuals.
In the 1990s, where a lot of people struggled for change, land was one of the issues that was to be dealt with.
In 2003, I think they tried to step back and to really roll back the losses.
In the 2013 election presidential debate, the presidential candidates were put to task to explain how they would handle the land question, among other issues.
All right, welcome back to the Kenya presidential debate 2013. Thank you, but you said that some of your competitors were land grabbers and you were not.
I said I cannot be accused, so I'm best suited to enforce because I have never grabbed or allocated any land.
Save for the rumors that have been peddled around, nobody has ever pointed out and said that I have been involved in impropriety in land anywhere in this country.
Prime Minister, Mr. Raila Odinga, he says that you have been quite literally in charge of the lands ministry. You've been saying, recently you said in Kapenguria that he should give some land to IDPs, and yet the Minister for Lands, James Orengo, is directly supervised, actually appointed by yourself. What have you done? It's been 5 years. Why haven't you taken him to court?
Well, Joe, let me begin by saying that I believe that in this country there is enough land for each one of us needs, but there is not enough land for each one's greed.
For most of the Kenyans looking for closure, they have pegged their hope on finding a solution to this complex issue of land in the new constitution that addresses land matters comprehensively. Similarly, The Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report, released in 2013, recommended revoking of all illegally obtained land titles at the coast and in other parts of the country through the National Land Commission.
Expectations of Kenyans are very high because this commission is responsible for managing all public land in Kenya in consultation with the national and county governments. It also has the role of advising the government on the registration of titles to land throughout the country.
With a devolved government, solving the land issue is expected to be easier. The new government has renewed its commitment to the Kenyan people.
Honorable members, my government is determined to provide solutions to land issues so that land once again can be seen for what it is, just one factor of production amongst many. We will propose bills that seek to address eviction and resettlement of internally displaced persons and squatters, management and adjudication of community land, leasing and public asset management.
However, the delivery of this renewed hope will depend on the government's commitment to reversing the injustices and inequalities in distribution of land and its resources to Kenyan people.
I want to assure you of my total commitment and dedication to the work that I am going to do for the nation.
A government that wants to leave a legacy for Kenya needs to think about a radical departure from past practice where you respected land rights however acquired, to a pragmatic way of beginning to resolve land issues that communities identify as what they call historical injustices. So the new government, by implementing the proposals of that constitution, would actually be telling Kenyans, this is the way we will go, and we are going to use land to unite Kenyans.
For now, Kenyans eagerly await a new dawn, where land issues will be settled once and for all. Until then, many continue to experience the after effects of one stringent event.